Can you hear me? Yeah, seems so. All right, so thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having us here. I will maybe start with the point of saying like, okay, our topic, does it work with AI? I think it's quite everyone asking themselves right now within their companies, yes, we want to do something, does it work with AI? But with this presentation, we have two parts here. We will first focus on one use case, what we as Blue Beyond did together with Vitesco. But we will only make a short presentation of that one, what we have done there, and then we will more focus on why we have chosen this use case. So being really on the point of take the right use case for your AI implementation of the company. But maybe starting by introducing what we as Blue Beyond do, and we are an end-to-end individual software provider. That means we do software, we can create software, develop software, or combine, connect software, but on the other side, we also do strategical consultancy on how to create data platforms, what technology to use, or even generally saying like what you can do with your data in a way of optimizing your current processes, but also talking about what kind of disruptive business models you can do in the future with your data. And I'm really happy to be here together with Alina from Vitesco to talk about how we're partnering, what we're doing, and yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, let me give a few words on Vitesco Technologies and what we do in contract management. So Vitesco is an automotive supplier. So we produce system solutions and components for electric vehicles as well as combustion vehicles and hybrid vehicles. And this with over 30,000 employees worldwide. The name Vitesco might not be known to all of you, and that's because we are a spin-off from Continental and just an independent company for 3 years now. So that's why we are quite new in the market, let's say, under this name. And my role in sales is to make sure that our colleagues worldwide have a dedicated process to manage their requirements and contracts that are incoming from our customers. And contract management as an automotive supplier is special in the sense that we do not write our own contract, so we receive all these requirements from the big car manufacturers such as VW, BMW, so they present us with a lot of requirements and we have to process all of them. And with the current, let's say, market developments, increasing requirements in sustainability in the supply chain, we are facing a lot of risks that they are trying to transfer to us. So we have to really make sure that all these requirements are processed and that we do not sign any risks that position us in a bad way in the market. So if we look at contract management, we're trying since years now to improve the process, increase efficiency in processing all of these requirements that we are receiving. And here you see what topics we are looking at. So we already have a system in place, and this was developed together with Blue, how we process our requirements. So which experts are looking at the requirements, which today is not only legal experts, it's also experts from supply chain, from sustainability, from IP. So there's like a normal contract now has 20 experts that need to look at this. So we make sure with this process that we have a dedicated rule that our colleagues can follow and that they sign in the end with a good feeling, let's say, that they have not signed any risks for us. And this process is already in place. We have all our data in the system. So we have the data on one side, we can evaluate the data and analyze it. But on the other hand, we also want to improve the process of incoming requirements. Because as said, we have a high number of these requirements and on the other side, limited resources to deal with them. So what we want to do with AI is to support our colleagues with pre-filtering the contracts for risks and give them a support in handling all the data that they need to look at. So if a contract has 140 pages, you can imagine the intensity and the time it takes to really process them internally. So what we are doing here, and this is the use case, and don't worry, that's the only 2 slides on contract management, and then we focus a little bit more on how we deal with this, is to support the colleagues, as said, with finding the risks, pre-filtering, and make their daily work easier in having not to look at all the clauses, but only the ones that are possibly new and that are associated with the risk. And if we compare our contracts with our standard position, we can make sure that we highlight only the parts that are important to look at.
So, and as Alina mentioned, we have those 4 requirements, which are the main task to do in that case. And what we thought about is, okay, how can AI help with that? And we had those main requirements, and then we could make an abstraction level of that and say, like, okay, what is the proper question behind those requirements? And in the end, you have those 2 parts. On the one side, you really want to search for content within the document and to compare that. But on the other side, you also want to have the context of the document itself. So when there is a sentence, to probably understand why the sentence is there, and that's the second part. So that means what is to do what those AI technology or AI tools should do is to analyze the contract on the one side and to give a recommendation what to do with that. And I think that's also something which is quite important with AI tools, that it's always about optimizing those tasks which come day by day again. And this is something which we recognize, okay, these are points which are daily work topics needs to be done. And to sum this up, what had been done. So we've started this project on December 23. We started it by making an assessment of the hyperscaler, okay, with whom should we go, with what kind of technology, also based on the current IT infrastructure of Vitesco, also saying like which kind of large language models should we do, because there are plenty on the market, each has different special requirements or have special topics where they're really good at, and also to create a general concept of the IT architecture. And then already on February 2024, we were on the state that we could say like, okay, we will develop an own UI so that Vitesco and people can work with it. We've created a direct data pipeline to the existing infrastructure, to the existing tool where all of the contract has been stored and managed with all of the metadata and so on. We've worked in that case within the RAC principle. We can also talk about it later. It's quite technical, but it's about semantic search. It's the vector database. And started doing the prompt engineering, because that's also a big part. It was just mentioned of saying like, okay, everyone should work with that, so it's important that it's always the same answer, so there needs to be predefined prompts so that this can happen in that case. And also we started off doing a training and fine-tuning of the solution, because there are specific topics that are just relevant for Vitesco, and we want to make sure that those are within the tool and that the tool can work with that and can answer questions on that. And what you can see here, so we have currently the current features. On the right-hand side, you can see the UI so far. So within the vector database, we have already 2,500 contracts available now, which are searchable, which you can ask questions to it. So you have those free text search. You always get a direct answer on your question as well. And this comes then to the point when you ask a question to it. Then you will get a list of all of the contracts which are related to this question. So like, okay, from all of the contracts we do have, those are the ones who are relevant to your questions. And you can click on one of those and even get directly highlighted which part of the document is related to your question. So this really brings you on the point. It is not answering your questions directly, but it helps you on your daily business of speeding up the research. And that's one of the points. So it doesn't have to be 100% right, but it already helps you in the whole searching process. And we also have a second part, which has not been screenshotted here, but this is the comparison to the risk and missing clauses. That means we have a part here where you have one contract and you can ask this contract like, what is missing compared to our or to the Vitesco risky and missing clauses, and then you will get a list of all of the missing clauses, and also they may get highlighted even though they are in there but not hitting the same expectations Vitesco has. Oops, that was too fast. Sorry.
Yeah, so we are now in the middle of testing all these features. So the first case Kevin was mentioning, like this text search that you are looking for a specific keyword. That's quite common for us, so that we have to analyze all of our contracts for a certain keyword because of market developments or company. So you would insert the keyword and you would also get the context. So the LLM would support with, because the keyword might have a different meaning in this contract, it already gives you context, and this helps us a lot. And also for the risky clauses, we've now matched already done contracts, the risks that have been identified, and checked it against the AI or the large language model here, and it found the exact risks that we were able to identify. However, it's still not, or the idea is not to fully automate it. We have, especially with contracts, we have, as said in the beginning, lawyers that need to finally check, and it's not at the stage. We talked about these 2% maybe that we might get a wrong result. So we have right now to make sure that we cross-check all of these results, but it's a process ongoing, yeah.
And I think it's, when you see that and hear that, it's like, yeah, straightforward. That's a great use case. Let's do this. Let's start with that. But being honest, it was not. That's when the animation is missing. Now it's getting interesting. So we have different layers here. I will try to explain it like this. But we did not probably just saying like, okay, we want to have an AI use case within the company, and we want to now do this with a large language model. We had a different approach with that one, and that was really about optimizing the current processes and thinking about what can help on the daily business in that case. And that was very important for us, and also in the way of the mindset how Vitesco has, in saying like, we have a current process, but we want to challenge this.
Yeah, that's when, as said, we've been independent company 3 years, and when we took over the tasks and the department, we had a process that was coming from the mother company, and we said, let's take a look at really what is the process, is it working for us? And with this question, we approached Blue and said, hey, let's take a look together at every step, and especially involve the end users in their daily work, like what are hurdles, where do they have time blockers that are difficult to them, and that's how we started this analysis.
Right, so we are still at the phase where we only have the sentence, we have not searched for it, it's all about optimization and the current process. The rest you don't see so far, okay? So what we have done then in that case, we have made interviews with different users of this current process. Those who are working on a daily basis with it, those who are working once a year with it, but they have to work once a year with it, those who really like the product, those who don't like the product or the current process, also from different global areas, because you have different perspective on how they want to work with such kind of tools as well. And with those interviews, we then had the chance, we had a lot of use cases by asking them what you need, what you want, what are challenges for you on a daily basis. And we could collect all those use cases. And there was also the point which was quite good for Vitesco or for the team from Alina and for us, because since we ask those questions and we have made those interviews, there also raised some use cases which had already been implemented within the tool. But since they didn't recognize it, something needs to be optimized in the way of how to communicate those features or something like that. And so we had the chance of collecting a lot of use cases. And when you have this amount of use cases, it's then really about what is the next steps. You could start with all of them and think about, okay, one by one, we just want to go through it, but there are also methods on the market to say, how can we prioritize them? That is the moment where you only see the graph without any buttons, please. So what we have done here is we like to work with the value feasibility matrix. And just to explain this in a short way, you have the x-axis, which shows how hard or how complex it is to implement use cases. So on the right-hand side, it's super easy to implement. On the left-hand side, it's nearly impossible to implement. And then you have the y-axis, which is about how much benefit does this use case bring to your company. So how much value does this use case have? And we have then made in combined workshops together with the team from Alina, to prioritize them, to put them on the matrix. And it was mainly done by the team of Alina, who then said like, okay, how much value does it bring? And we made the X view from a technical perspective, like how complex is everything? And this is the moment where all of the buttons come in now and the numbers. And that was really good for us because saying like, okay, we could group them up. So we said like, okay, on the right-hand side, on the top right-hand side, we have all of those low-hanging fruits. We know it's easy to implement, we know the technology maybe it's only optimizing in workflow, adding metadata, and still having an added value to the company or to the project or to the process. On the other side, we also found use cases which are really irrelevant because they are not bringing that much value and also are quite complex to implement, so it would cost a lot by implementing them without having a big benefit. And on the other hand side, we had those top left use cases. And these were, in our case, and that's just mentioned also again, in our case, the AI-based use cases. That could also be use cases don't need to be tackled with AI, but for us, in that case, those had been those. And to already mention that, what's kind of interesting, when you look at those kind of metrics, the use cases you see on the top left side, I would say like 3, 4, 5 years ago, we would not been able to implement them because the technology had not been at the level where it is right now. So you also have to think about where are we right now and what can we do. And with all of those, it was in the end also that we could create kind of a roadmap of saying like tackle easy ones and tackle ones which are more complex and you still have an ongoing development.
Yeah, and this roadmap was very useful for us because as you can imagine in big corporations, so you have budgets behind all of these cases, so we have a tool and we have yearly enhancements that we do, but of course the AI cases were not planned, so we needed this roadmap to also internally explain what are we planning to do and why. So this roadmap helped us to make a 2-year plan and say, so the low-hanging fruits we can deal with our yearly budgets, but the AI cases, what are we planning to do and how? And this helped a lot to get this internally as well approved and start with the project.
And we just had this with asking the right questions with this project, and that was also that we came up in the end of saying like these are the main 7 questions we are asking ourselves when it comes to the use case and thinking about is this one being implemented. Some of those questions we could answer quite easily due to the prior work with the value feasibility matrix, for example. But I think it's always worth having a second look into that because point 1, it's always like, is it a real and significant problem? Is there a value? We could answer that due to the prior work, but sometimes you find use cases and then you have asked the question yourself. Second one, and this was just raised before, does this use case really have an added value by implementing it with AI? It is not always needed to do everything with AI because I think that's quite common currently that everyone's like, okay, yeah, we want to do something and we want to do it with AI, and you're just searching and try to do everything with AI technology, but sometimes it's not needed to do that. You can have simple automations within a process for having a huge amount of value within your company. Thinking about, is it really this tool you should use? Number 3 and 4, it's also, do you have the right data quality, the amount of data to work with AI? To answer this question on this use case, we could answer this quite good because we knew we have already this amount of contracts within the tool. We could directly create a pipeline to it and work with those data. Also, which was super important and which brought us to a first good step of working together is like the right skill set. Alina and the team, they already had worked with kind of similar technology of semantic search for understanding how those things work, and that brings you on a complete different level when you can work on an equal technical level and also know what kind of boundaries are there with technologies. I think that's one of the most important things. It's not just knowing what those technologies can do, it's also knowing what those technologies can't do currently and how we can then work with those tools. Basic technical requirements. What is the infrastructure? It don't need to be that this is a no-go or because you don't have it, you can't do it, but you have to think about what needs to be done. And also it's about the implementation period. I just mentioned that before. When you think about this use case and you only have think about we can finish this in 9 to 12 months, maybe that's a point of saying like we will not tackle this currently in this amount because in 9 to 12 months, there will be new technology on the market and which then helps you much easier to implement it at that case. So it's always thinking about how can we have quick wins within 3 to 6 months for having first success and also having with that case then go on step by steps for not having those big pictures and doing the big project, but having single little parts. And the last question, do we have a proper attention from everyone? So is the company ready for that? And do the company supports this effort which needs to be done?
Yeah, and here we had to make sure, of course, in all big corporations right now, there's an IT department working on an AI strategy, and this is also the case in our company. And we also have internal resources, but they are busy with rolling out the actual AI strategy. So we made sure that our project fits in the overall strategy and that in the end there's an alignment that we can include our MVP later in the corporate solution. And this was really important to get the IT colleagues as well support us. We also need their knowledge, so the team is not only sales, so we have colleagues in IT that are heavily supporting us with this, and like this we can make sure that we have a success, or in the end we have a solution that is adopted in a company.
And also in that case for not having too much silos. It's really about breaking up those silos, talking to each other and bringing such kind of technology when we do fine-tuning, when we're talking about the solutions, that there is a value for other departments as well when there isn't success within this one department. And that slide is mainly managed for also underlining the questions we've just arised, because this showing with this is the AI adoption report from O'Reilly, and these are showing like which challenges do the companies have by implementing them. It's from 2022, but it's still on the same level with that case. And it really starts with the lack of the knowledge. It is so important to understand the technology, to understand the boundaries, to know how those tools work, and also what needs to be connected to those and about stuff. It's also, in that case, what I wanted to directly jump is the data. Most of the companies do not have the right data or not enough data, or the data pipeline is not there for an ongoing improvement of such or usage of such kind of tools. Difficulties in determining the relevant business use case. That's really the point of saying like, is this really an AI use case? Do I need to work like this within the company, or do I have other chances of implementing such use case? AI is not yet viewed as necessary in corporate culture. That one is getting down because it's not a hype anymore. It's really about the trend. It's now people want and need to use it and see it as a tool which can help. It's a technical infrastructure, which is just important. And what's kind of interesting, and this is not, of course it's a challenge, but it's not a challenge in regards of finding the right use case. It's more a challenge of how those should be implemented. It's the legal and governance risk and concerns. That's really thinking about choosing what kind of technology in that case. We're talking here now with your contracts. That was very important for implementing an own large language model on their own database, on their own cloud platform, and not using one with API on an external one, because all of the data, all of the knowledge should stay within the company. It is also about implementing the domain know-how in that case.
Yeah, and also when it comes to legal and governance is to get the support, and here it helped for us to get this release that we have a very small use case. So as Kevin in the beginning said, it's not a huge amount of data. It's clear where the data is stored and how we work with it. So of course, if you talk about a big AI strategy, then there's a lot of more governance risks. But for our project, it helped that we started small, and now we are trying to enlarge this. And this brings us to our key takeaways, working now roughly 6 months with the large language model and how we approach this. So to start with is maybe the corporate mindset. So first of all, it's not, we still have to also justify a little bit. We are not trying to replace our lawyers, let's say. We want to support our colleagues with the tasks that are time consuming, that they do not have the time for. So we want to have a more efficient process and taking away the work that they as said, do not have the time for. So it should make the work easier and not replace it, or it cannot replace it right now. And then the project itself is very trial and error in the sense that we are, with the large language model, we have to weekly analyze results that we're getting, check, does that fit with what we need? So we have to invest a lot of time, and we're learning weekly on how we then later on apply this. As we said in the beginning now, we really have to identify, is AI the right solution for the use cases we have? So now internally a lot of colleagues know that we're working on this and we have been approached. So first step we're doing, if someone approaches us and says we would also like to use the large language model for our topic, is first to look at what is your case and is this the right technology to solve your problem? Because just because it's solving our case here doesn't mean it's solving other cases. So really check if, and you have said this before, is it the right technology?
And that's tough to say, but the project costs for such kind of project are really difficult to estimate in general, due to that factor that we have those trial and error. I mean, training a large language model to your own needs, you don't know if with the first iteration the results you get are the ones you really need, or do you have a second iteration, a third one? It's also about that it is not cost efficient in regards, cost intensive in regards of the resources from the centers, but it's also very cost intensive from the resources from persons. It's really about that the data for training needs to be prepared. The answer this model is giving you needs to be checked. Is it correct or is it not? Need there to be amendments. But on the other side, and that was what we just figured out as well, we started with the smaller project for the specific department. But this use cases now really start to be reusable for other ones. And maybe not all of it, but we have now this vector database within this. So here we have the vector database and a large language model working together. For other use cases, we can now use the vector database for having a semantic search, where you don't need to have a large language model answering proper sentences. It's just about finding a similar word to it. Or we have other use cases where we then can really take this complete package again and put in other data sources and a new UI, and you will get an answer to that, to your question then. So this is really it was really helpful to start at one point and now seeing other topics arising in that case. And that is, I think, also really, really good thing that since we started there and made those trial and errors, it was about setting up knowledge within the team of Alina. And they are now the first ones, other departments questioning, can we do this with AI? And she has a proper good knowledge now about, yes, that's possible, yes, that's no, or maybe you should tackle this in another way. So you don't even need external consultancy anymore with that point, but she can answer the first questions and lead them into the right direction. So it's really about, since this kind of technology is technology which is mandatory or gets more and more mandatory, you also need to get at least a basic know-how with that kind of technology, how it's working. And to bring those last 2 points, I think that's with all kind of technology or implementation now, cross-functional teams, it's important. You need specific domain know-how for answering the questions, but you need also IT know-how. So it's always important to have those cross-functional teams working together. And on the last point, it's really about quality over quantity. It was, Alina just mentioned it, starting with a smaller area, having an amount of data you know what should be the answer, how everything should work, helps you creating good results, helps you to having an value quite fast, and then you can start by scaling this up more and more. Thank you.
Thanks.